Welcome everyone to Curating Online webinar. We're delighted you could join us today. I would like to begin by just saying that the situation in India today is quite grim. It's quite sad and in difficult times. We would like to give our regards to everyone and wishing everyone speedy recovery. We decided to organize these events to look at what it means to curate online. Nowadays, especially because over the past year, the pandemic has disrupted the ways of working, being together and engaging with art. This webinar is a result of a collaboration between 5 people: Marialaura Ghidini, Gaia Tedone, Padmini Murray, Vidya Shivadas, and myself, supported by the ESF Cultural Mobility and Italian Council 9th edition. Unfortunately, one of our collaborators is not able to be with us today. Vidya, due to some personal reasons, and we wish her a speedy recovery. Since the public cannot see each other, so we just wanted to start by saying that there are about 90 registrations, half from India and half from different nooks and corners of the world. The audience is ranging from students, artists, curators, architects to academics. We're very happy to be engaging with this super diverse crowd. So let's get down to the schedule today. We will begin with a presentation by Marialaura and Gaia, followed by 3 guest speakers. I'll introduce the guest speakers as we go along. It's very important for us to have a conversation with you. So we'll ask you to type your questions in the Q&A section, which should be at the bottom. And we will try to address these questions at the end of each presentation. Yeah, thank you for being here, and I'll hand over the stage to Marialaura and Gaia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. So while Marialaura is sharing her screen, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Gaia Tedone. I'm a curator based in Milan, in Italy, and I'm very pleased to be with you today. And I will be doing this presentation with Marialaura, who's based in Bangalore. And the title of our presentation is The Dawn of Curating on the Web. So over to Marialaura.
So hi everyone, and thank you for being here. I'll just go straight away to the presentation. Since the mass migration of artistic programs, of art institutions and galleries online that we have recently experienced, we wanted to look at the evolution of curatorial approaches to producing exhibition on the web. These approaches, according to us, have given life to new ways of thinking about the infrastructure of contemporary art, and also to critical perspective on network culture. So, and as curator Christian Paul said in an essay published over 10 years ago, curatorial online is affected by the workings of the network environment and therefore involves new forms of mediation. So she talks about the internet as a contextual network where a different context is always one click away. So although the contemporary internet is radically different, this remark is important because Paul shifts the attention from the idea of working with immaterial objects to an analysis of the technological context in which curating takes place. So from the introduction of the first web browser to blogging in the early 2000s, to the infinite scrolls and cloud computing in the mid 2000s, and to the smartphone and the present multitude of apps which are usable across multiple devices, curators have responded to the way the tech industry has developed its services, and users also experience them by appropriating them in new ways for their exhibition projects. However, the history of curating web-based exhibitions is quite fragmented, and the lack of a cohesive mapping has limited the discourses thus far. So archiving is predominantly focused on, basically it's focusing on very few initiatives which were very often related to archiving web-based art and net art, and only a few artists and curators have actually been looking at curating exhibition online. And this has created a vacuum so that curating online is being discussed more in relation to the popularization of the profession rather than in relation to its contribution to the system of contemporary art. And this is the reason why myself, with Gaia in this presentation, and curator Annette Decker, embarked on a mapping project of web-based exhibition. It's because we wanted to actually create a resource to try to understand the richness of this field of work. And here is a brief overview of such richness, like a very short overview. So the mid-90s saw the growth of artistic and curatorial experiment with the web medium, and the web was not yet a sleek, user-friendly, and visually dominated environment by one made by hyperlinks and command lines. And so with the introduction of the web browser, surfing the net, which is a term that became popular in 1992, started to be an activity not only for technologies, and the web became a new medium for making and displaying art. It is at this time, the institutional art world actually understood the web very hierarchically, and only rarely saw the web-based exhibition as a space for displaying art in its own right. So few were the institutional initiatives, mostly in the US, such as Die Art Foundation, web projects, and Gallery 9 at the Walker Art Center. And it was mostly artists who generated media awareness of their project and created spaces for showcasing and archiving art. And especially this was from a net art artist. So the example that you see, it's Art Teleportatia by Olja Jalina, which also proposed the critique of the commercial art world by offering on-demand net art over the internet. So despite the few curatorial initiative, an innovative curatorial model at that time was AdaWeb, and it was an exhibition space that displayed site-specific commissions, but it was also a multifunctional platform that included activity like an online forum and an e-store. The website actually explored the network and aesthetic possibility of the web interface, and the navigation was labyrinthine and made of multiple hyperlinks and menu bar. Commissions were mostly by non-web savvy artists who collaborated with other web programmers. But apart from facilitating multidisciplinary collaboration, AdaWeb also explored the relationship between the web space and the offline space. Its influx section, for example, was home of artist projects that existed both online and offline. And one of these examples is On Translation by Anthony Montadas, which explored the idea of the mediating interface in relation to language and how language mediates between the art and the viewer, as well as the institution and the audience. And this exploration also took place offline at public events like international summits and also the Olympic Games. And here we enter a different phase. So with the platformization of the web of the first decade of the 2000, we have like a major shift in the production, display, and engagement with art in the online environment. Ready-to-use interfaces and services facilitated new and easier modes of communicating and publishing, and curators started to create platforms that were not only dedicated to display web-specific art, but they were used to devise new modes of producing, distributing, and engaging with it, often nurturing a critique of the very same technology that they adopted. For example, the possibility to access freely vast databases of user-produced content, cultural content, actually trigger new projects such as curating YouTube, which explore what it meant, what YouTube actually meant in the context of artistic production, and played with the way user interaction was actually scripted by design on the platform. It created a free tool for curation to create video assemblages of material that was sourced on YouTube, raising question about the role of the curator in the age of algorithmic services. Amongst these exploratory platforms, there are the surf clubs, which focus on the technological mechanisms behind collectively generated cultural material, the GIF, for example. And their approach to curating was collective, informal, discursive, and nurture the community of interest. They used the format of the post and the repost to generate art and art-related discourses. In other instances, also Gallery Online, which use Facebook to generate exhibitions as live performances, and where the art was actually meant to disrupt viewers' browsing routines on their desktops at a time where the space where in this space both the private and public work and leisure, consumption and production increasingly merge. Those years saw a decrease in the number of institutional initiatives, such as Gallery 9 that we mentioned, closed in 2003, and only a few institutions used the web as a space for curatorial experimentation, such as the Korea Web Art Festival, which was curated by the artist duo Yang Hye-chang, Heavy Industry, and was supported by the Ministry of Culture. Or we have the example of the independent initiative like XCult, which was funded by curator Reynard Storz, who produced the online exhibition Beam Me Up, where the website functioned as a platform that was providing like a multi-layered way of actually experiencing the exhibition. We are coming closer to today, and from the mid-2010s onwards, the platform economy has begun to replace the web browser with mobile interfaces, generating a web that is more compartmental, and it's closed, yet made of interconnected services. With this, the distinction between online and offline spheres have actually been forced to disappear under the banner of seamless connectivity. And it's been the commercial art world that took advantage of these, generating projects like Sedition, which sort of reinstated age-old system of gatekeeping, for example, by using the idea of the number digital limited edition. And recently was followed by program like online private views open 24/7. Despite these, independent curators have continued to develop alternatives. An example is Art Micro Patronage, which incorporated a viewing strategy that allowed the development of a system of micro-patrons for digital art. Or there's an example of Exchange, which used the commercial service eBay as a site of artistic production to explore the type of exchanges that could occur on an online marketplace. And he presented 7-day auctions for several months, creating a structure, like a sort of collective strategy of production, exchange, and communication online through the intervention of artists, viewers, collectors, researchers, as well as guest curators that were invited to be part of the project. So the trajectory that we have seen so far shows how curators offer independently have developed context-specific practices that have proposed different ways of operating in the online environment. So we have example from working with the flexibility and connectedness of web interfaces to creating community of interest, to generating new archival forms, and to supporting collaborative making and critical thinking about the mediating role of interfaces in our everyday life. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the rush of being online, at least this is what we think, has been accompanied by a less degree of critical observation of the network environment in which curating takes place.
And I think this is partially because being online became in 2020 a necessity, also for those institutions that were not used to operate on the web before, creating this polarizing condition or either being online or doing nothing. So I want to propose that the pandemic has created a forced migration online for the mainstream contemporary art world and resulted in various kinds of reactions from the so-called digital art world. So in the mainstream media, there's been a discussion of a new era or even a golden age of digital media, even though, as we just seen with Marialaura, this is far from being a new history, in fact. And I would like to add that the newness is really just a matter of perspective, of fields, of institution of reference, of intellectual discourses. So to reiterate a simple point, what happened in 2020, my opinion is simply that the contemporary art world and its market got finally interested in the digital. So this article is quite interesting for a statement, which is the next slide, where basically really does highlight this idea of the digital being a sort of bridge that open up new experiences of fruition for art. And it's also interesting for the kind of examples it brings to the surface. So the emphasis of the article, the example you mentioned, are the sort of development and growth of the so-called online viewing room, such as the one that were used by many art fairs, such as Art Basel in Switzerland, or podcast series such as the one developed by many commercial galleries, like David's Winner in New York. And similarly, here in Italy, contemporary art museums such as the Triennial started to really boost their presence in social media, building new formats such as podcasts and creating online displays of their exhibition in viewing rooms, rely upon services such as the Google Art Institute. And if you can add, as if these services were kind of transparent interfaces. On social media, on the other hand, so-called new digital native institutions were created overnight. And here are two examples I offer. So the case of the COVID Art Museum, which was open for submission by user under specific hashtag, as well as the Virtual Museum of COVID-19 Photography. So this is a Tumblr page that was put together by my colleague, Marco De Mutis, who's the digital curator of Photo Museum Winterthur in Switzerland, which is a really interesting archive of many of these initiatives that were put together over 2020. So if you're interested in sort of having a broad overview, this is a great resource. So what happened in parallel? In social media, there's been a sort of buzz around this digital awakening, especially in those accounts or Instagram pages that were already producing commentary or memes about the contemporary art world, its elitism and erratic behavior. So around that time, indeed, the attitude of some institutions began to appear a little bit ridiculous. And so this is a funny tweet about this. And yeah, but at times also quite problematic, if not dangerous, in the sense that many artists were suddenly asked to produce content for free to keep the pages of cultural institutions live. And so this is an example of an Instagram post by a curator here in Italy that really, you know, puts the finger on this issue, a very pressing and important issue. So moving on yeah, thanks. So confronted with this buzz and noise, some of those gallery and institutions, such as New Scenario in Germany, they were actually already working with the online exhibition and curating on the web for quite some time, decided sensibly to go quiet for a while. Others, like Green Cube Gallery, issued thought-provoking statements to suggest that at times to do nothing is better than to do something without thinking. And the team of Green Cube Gallery will be with us tomorrow. We're very thrilled to have them in this context, and we hope they can tell us a little bit the background story behind this statement. So to sum up, what the experience of this year has taught us is that curating on the web is not broadcasting, nor is live streaming. And additionally, the online viewing rooms are not enough. So what we would like to propose is actually that online curating is a network process performed by various agents and profoundly shaped by technology. In other words, it can be described as network co-curation and be understood as a strategic alliance between a curator, object, users, and machine, and as a decentralized and collaborative alternative to the dynamics of hyper-individualism and cultural gatekeeping that are often at the core of our world systems and social media platforms. So in other words, we're talking about an ecosystem, a constellation, where curating happens as the relational process between various nodes and agents, including users, network images, algorithms, artists, culture, and institutions. So what does it really mean to curate on the web? And this is really the question at the core of this webinar. So reflecting upon this year, we really see this moment as an opportunity to relook at the earlier values and ideas that were at the core of the first sort of experimentation with the online environment. So ideas of public domain, accessibility, connectivity, collaboration, sustainability, and creativity, all values that we hope we will be able to explore together in the next couple of days. And here, to conclude, we would like to present this quote by Annette Schindler from her book, Men in Black, Handbook of Curatorial Practice, where she states that each presentation format has politics inscribed within it. And so we would like to add, does each platform or virtual room that we use to communicate with one another and to display art, as we will further explore together in our workshop on Saturday. So for the time being, stay tuned, keep calm, and curate online. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marialaura and Gaia. Does anyone have any questions from the audience? I just had one question, which I would like to ask you guys. Like you're talking about these platforms and its accessibility as such, and the gatekeepers within these platforms. And online, if we look at things online, these are kind of the public spaces, right? But they're actually private gatekeepers and things. I find this quite fascinating, this relationship between this. How, do you also see this as a public space as such, or do you see it as a semi-public space?
Well, I think this is a really interesting tension that you pointed out, because we do use them as kind of public spaces and forum to some extent, but in fact there is you know, they are by all means private. So all the sort of datification and extraction of data that kind of runs behind this smooth interface that we're used to it's something that we tend either to ignore or just not pay sufficiently attention at the moment. But for sure, I think it is a problem of how these platform and big companies have sort of put themselves as the provider of this service. And I would imagine this to be a kind of temporary phase of the web. I can't see this going on forever, in the sense of having like this monopoly of big company regulating spaces that by all means, should be public. So I think perhaps we will be able to look back in a couple of decades and see this as the moment where most of those public spaces were actually, managed by a corporation. And maybe there will be some kind of mix formulation on public and private as we move forward. But definitely at the moment, it's a little bit a kind of jungle out there. So I think it's really important to be aware of that.
I know that we have a little time and we have to move on.
Yeah, there are some questions. You want to look through them?
Yes. So we have one by Candice Jacobs. How do artist-led online projects gain value in critical positioning within these mass media dialogues around the new value of digital art today, when many online curatorial projects are not connected to the art market? I mean, from my point of view, it's like, even the history, the very short history that we have seen so far, it's mostly artist-led online projects that they have lots of inherent value and newness related to them. The only problem is that most of them have been kind of forgotten. So I guess like one way of gaining value and critical positioning is actually keeping the dialogue going about this history. At least this is what I can think right now.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to speak about value and new value in general. Like, I think these are very complex contexts when you actually insert them. The online environment, which, as we've seen, also thanks to the previous question, is not really a neutral public space, but it's one where kind of the technical layer, the economic layer, the social, cultural, they are all sort of interconnected. So even what do we mean by value of digital art or cultural value is quite a fraught and complex question in itself.
So we have 3 more questions in the Q&A. And
yeah, you want to just pick one of them? Because we're running a little bit out of time.
Or we can reply to them at the end of the session, actually, where we have more time, or as we go along. Yeah, but we will promise to reply to them. We are keeping it up on the questions.
Thanks for all your questions, and we promise to catch up with them as soon as we can.
Yeah. Okay. So next we have Nimrod Vardi and Rebecca Edwards from arebyte Gallery, UK. I will put the bio in the chat so people can read it. Thank you, Nimrod and Rebecca, for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting us. My name is Nimrod Vardi, the founder and director of arebyte.
And yeah, I'm Rebecca Edwards, the curator of arebyte. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for inviting us and for a great presentation before that, Gaia and Marialaura. Should we just start? Share our screen?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll start by briefly talking about us, the gallery, and what we do. and can kind of give an overview of our operation of on-site and our online activities, and then kind of dive into one specific project that we want to talk about, an exhibition that we held last year called Real-Time Constraints. It was co-curated with Luba Elliott. So we'll start with that. So we're arebyte Gallery. We're a digital art gallery space based in East London. We have been operating since 2013, starting in Hackney Week, and in 2017, we moved to a new site in Canning Town. We had an online program since the early days, around 2013, and been curating both on-site and online since then. As the years goes by and kind of we develop our model and ambition, we just kind of realized the balance between our online curation process and projects and on-site and how to connect those two. What you see now is the current exhibition that we have on, RGB FAQ by Alan Warburton, and we're reopening that on the 17th of May for 2 weeks. So hopefully whoever's in London, you can make it to the gallery. You need to book, and all information is on our website. I'm going to go through the browser, different kind of pages for our website and our operation. So to give, again, a brief overview of what we do, we have a main art program, which is an on-site program. We commission artists working in digital and emerging technologies. We have 2 main solo commissions per year, plus 1 group show within our main on-site program. There's our Hotel Generation Young Artist Development Program that is aimed specifically at artists outside of London under the age of 28. And we have our Digital Skills Program. Let me just jump to the right tab. This one, sorry, which is a program that we started in 2019, but we developed more in the past year. That basically we give artists a series of workshops run by artists, giving in-depth and basic skills onto different softwares, from 3D scannings to Unity, AI, and so forth, augmented reality. So this is a new strand that we're developing and developed more in the past year. It's been really successful. There's a lot of interest from local, international viewers and audience. So that's been going pretty well for us. Then another strand of our operation is our studio provision. We have a couple of sites where we offer affordable workspaces. This is mainly kind of as a business model, but it operates very well and allows us to continue programming our activities. And then the third strand is our arebyte on Screen, which is our online program. Again, that was launched earlier in 2014 under a different name of Storage Unit, and we've been curating projects since then. And then in 2019, we have rebranded it or renamed it into arebyte on Screen, creating a parallel between our on-site program and our online activities. Going back to our on-site program, each year we have a theme for the year. So this year is realities, last year was systems, and the year before home, and so forth. You can find all the information on site, and creating parallel with our online program, arebyte on Screen, we also have artists responding to that activities. Do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think our online program, as much as it does relate to our on-site program, our physical exhibition program, you know, there's a lot more scope for us to be spontaneous and to be a little bit more experimental, because obviously the boundaries when you're working online are very different to when you're working in physical space. You know, you don't have walls, you don't have to figure out hanging systems. The ways in which you curate and the ways in which you install are almost infinite online. And I think it makes for our online program to be very dynamic in that way, because we can respond quite quickly to what's going on outside. or even within the art world in which we operate, whereas our physical program, it's planned a year and a half, 2 years in advance. And, you know, these things get solidified. So I think it's a really nice way for us to operate, is to have these two programs that ultimately are very different, even though they're linked by one word every year.
So this is the way that our online program, arebyte on Screen, looks like. It's a continuous scroll of all the activities that we've done, and it has 4 strands. The strands are arebyte insights, that is all the activities that are kind of additional to our on-site program. It's a series of talks of anything that relates to our programs, expanding kind of the conversation, the context, and so forth. The second strand is arebyte networks, where we invite curators, galleries, and other kind of cultural partners to curate or to present their work on the platform. We have commissioned 3 curators per year for the past couple of years, and each one brought different projects that we can also discuss a bit about that. The third strand is arebyte chain, which is a continuous daisy chain of artists invites. So we invite the first artist, and they invite the next one, and the next one invite the next one, and so forth, and creating this kind of endless chain of artists invite an artist to present and to respond to the previous work. And the fourth one is arebyte skills. That's basically parallel to our on-site main educational program. These are the recording of some of the activities, or activities that are made specifically for this program, such as a course produced and curated by Filippo Lorenzin about social media and artists from Dada to TikTok. You can find all these pages and activities on our website. A bit more about AOS. As I said, that's a continuation of our previous programs that was called a storage unit, where we also hosted Guido from Green Gallery that will present later today. And as Rebecca said, that allows us to really expand on the role of and the process of curating on site, and really to understand what is the links between the physical and digital world, or the virtual world. And to keep pushing these boundaries. And I think since the launch of Storage Unit and now AOS, the range of projects that have been curated, produced, and displayed on the platform is really wide. And every time there comes a new artist or curator we're working with, really trying to push what is the role of us in presenting these works. Since COVID happened, gallery had to close, we've seen a major increase in our audiences, and we tripled or more than that our audiences online. I think mainly because of the agility and the flexibility of our projects, being able to think online quite easily, rather than have to convert things to some more specific virtual wall sort of exhibitions. In March last year, when COVID, when the first lockdown happened, we were supposed to launch an exhibition by Uli Alialina, a great net art pioneer. And it was on the same day almost as the lockdown started, and the movement, the transformation online was somewhat of a simple decision, because her work already existed online. So we just need to change slightly the context or the environment in which it was presented. But it felt like as a natural process for her. For her, it was like all of her work are online, so yeah, we might as well just keep it online and continue with this. And that's, I think, proved the agility and how easy it is to really do this transformation. And since then, we've moved some of our exhibitions online and realized that we can really push the boundaries of what it means to curate things, and that would lead to real-time constraints.
Yeah, I mean, I think just on that, it will be useful just to say that artists like Olia, Lialina, and maybe Jody, and all of these artists that have been working online since the birth of the internet, for them it was kind of perplexing to see, as Marialaura, you said, this forced migration online. I think they were quite baffled by it, and kind of, you know, they've been working in this space for years, and I think just this renewed attention now, it's good in some ways, but I think for them it also maybe felt a little offensive. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but anyway. So last year we had Real-Time Constraints, which was our yearly group show. And obviously due to the pandemic, we didn't want to postpone it. So we decided to to have it be iterated in a different way online. And this kind of really came about through conversations with the artists. As curators, we're very interested to hear from the artists how they would like their work to be perceived or to be received in the digital realm. And so the conversation started obviously with the pandemic and thinking about viruses, computer viruses, and the way that information is kind of dispersed online, and kind of this influx of information. I mean, as Nimrod said, as we're all aware, there were so many online exhibitions that kind of came from the pandemic. There were so many curators that wanted to do stuff online, and for us, we were kind of thinking about a way to make the exhibition almost autonomous, almost having its own agency, so that it wasn't like people went to the exhibition, but instead the exhibition came to them in a very organic way. So the exhibition itself, as you can see, it featured works by 8 artists working at the intersection of machine learning, big data, surveillance, algorithms, and web-based interventions. And the exhibition took the form of a plugin. So you downloaded the plugin, and every hour on the hour throughout a typical working day, you'd get a pop-up of one of the works. And I think what's really interesting about this show is that no matter where you were in the world, the works would pop up at exactly the same time. So it really gave this idea of like a global approach to exhibition making, where anybody who had it installed was seeing the works at the same time. And I think in this way, we worked with a great programmer called Rob Pruce, and also the artists were heavily involved in the way that their pop-ups looked. So you see here, we've got Jake Elwes' Zizi. That was kind of portrayed in a certain way. He wanted just 3 pop-ups, whereas somebody like Gretchen had like 15 pop-ups, I think, and they all kind of came after one another. So for her, she really wanted to enforce this idea of this invasion of sorts. But I think for us, when we're thinking about curating online, we want to think less about world building, in a sense. We want to think less about marking a space for ourselves, and think more about how we can sort of go under the hood of the systems that already exist, and kind of put ourselves within them. So obviously plugins, they've existed for years, and this idea of like pop-up ads have also existed for decades. But for us, just to kind of tweak it slightly and put on the lens of something different really created a different experience for the viewers, as well as for the artists showing their works in this way.
I think just adding to this is kind of this idea of using the existing platforms of the web rather than creating something new. It is creating a special plugin, but it's working on the network to disseminate and distribute the content using its own kind of technologies, strategies, to really understand what it means to curate online and of the web and on the web. And I think this kind of continues series of other kind of nice interventions or curatorial projects that we've done. But kind of this idea of really understanding how to present this thing is becoming at the core of our activities. I don't know if you want to, we didn't prepare that much, but.
Yeah, so I guess just continuing with this idea of working with existing structures and within existing kind of communities online, we just kind of briefly wanted to mention the group show that we're co-curating with Jan Robert Legter this year called The Digital Weird. Again, it features 10 artists working across film spanning decades, But the idea for this show is to present it as a form of a digital scavenger hunt. So the works will be embedded within existing structures like, what are we using? YouTube, there's dating sites, Google Maps, Beaker browser. So we're really kind of looking at existing ways that we can present video and imagery, and then putting these into kind of a scavenger hunt. So again, mimicking it was Google, I think, or a big tech company kind of did one of these very famous scavenger hunts to find the next employee. We're kind of, again, sort of ruminating on these pre-existing ideas of how you can travel through the web using the web itself.
Kind of, I think, going down this rabbit hole of what the internet has to offer, and especially when the theme of weird is trying to look at the periphery of those. And I'm wrong, we're not using YouTube, we're actually using different type of video platforms that are less used in order to kind of look at all these website that doesn't have the same viewership but has the same capabilities, those alternatives, the underground. And I think this really opens up the world of the conversation for us as curator to see what's out there, what's operating outside this kind of online, more mainstream, let's call it, artists. I think just going back to real-time constraints, there's a few examples here. Well, I found just one. Well, I can't find it now. But basically, I have other people tweeting about the work, and I thought that that's quite nice about this idea of going and seeing someone else's exhibition, but online, and using the same idea of screenshots as if you're going to an exhibition and showing that you've been there. I
think that's also what's really great about online exhibition making, is that, you know, it's the exhibition doesn't just stop when you visited and when you've posted to Instagram or when you've taken your image. It stays forever. There's always a presence of it online. Even if you delete all the files, there's still kind of a trace of it there. And I think that's a really interesting sort of viewpoint to have, especially in terms of archiving. At the moment, we're not having trouble, but we're thinking through how we can archive a lot of our exhibitions, because with real-time constraints, the plugin doesn't exist anymore. All we have are those screenshots that you saw. And I think, and obviously the work itself, the artists still have the work, but I think it's that idea of the performative, or like how do you preserve a performance? How do you kind of earmark it for future use or for future viewing? You can't. It's an experience, and you have to be there.
That's all from us. Don't know if there's any questions about the project. Stop sharing now.
Thank you, Nimrod and Rebecca, for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one quite general, though, like picking up on what you said at the end. What do you think is left to discover on the internet for curator, actually?
I mean, so much. There are so many communities on the internet, rightfully so, undiscovered communities, because I think for many that the internet is still a safe space. So I think trying to research sort of these communities that exist on the peripheries, there's still so much uncovered ground. And I know that I still go down rabbit holes on the internet. I'll go in Reddit, or I'll go through Twitter, and I'll just go in these weird threads, and often nothing really comes up. But then every so often you'll get a little nugget of gold, and you're like, this is amazing. I can't believe somebody posted this, or I can't believe this exists. So I think there's still so much to discover. I think there will always be so much to discover. Also with things like the Wayback Machine, you can go way back.
There's also the sense of rediscovering things that were kind of more old school, and rethinking what the web means and how it should operate, and who's in control of that. I think all these explorations, as Rebecca said, there's so much to explore, there's so much content. For me, I think, or for us as curators, it's always refreshing to try and think of a new way to present work online. And there's artists that we're working on for this year, Ben Grosso, for example, that his show will be, I think, in July this year. And it's a really rediscovery of how to take those works that exist on very specific type of platforms that uses a lot of Facebook and social media, and then to move it to a gallery space that doesn't have the same interactivity and all these, and then you'll go back to online and try to understand, wait, what does it mean to present things online, and how can we, if we can replicate that, and if we cannot, what is this conversation? So this is, for me, I wouldn't say a lot more exciting than curating in a gallery space, because I do really enjoy the gallery, the physical gallery space, but it's a whole new world of discovery that's all the time, it's ongoing.
Thank you. We also have 2 questions in the Q&A. The first one is, how do you gauge online engagement of audiences? What strategies do you use to do the same? By Kyle Trivedi.
How do we gauge online engagement of audience? Well, first of all, you have the analytics and you have the regular social media stats that you can get. But these are dry numbers. I think from us, sometimes is that one comment or that one email that says, I really love what you do, that push us forward. I remember a couple of years ago in our old gallery space, we had an exhibition about Alzheimer's, and the gallery didn't have too much visitors because we had a small space, and there was one person that sent me an email after visiting, said, your exhibition brought me to tears. So it's just that one feedback that would just say that everything we do is just so worth it. But going back to online, I think the strategy is always also trying to reinvent things or to rethink of things, looking at the wheel, but not trying to reinvent the wheel, but try to see how the wheel is working differently. So similar to the pop-ups that we know for exhibitions, you do something that it's cool and exciting, and you just roll with it. I think a scavenger hunt would be one of those strategies that would attract kind of the idea of discovery, the idea of, wait, what's next? What's behind the next link?
Yeah, I would also say that obviously a successful exhibition means a lot of different things to different people, and for us, I think we're less concerned maybe about what do they call it, bums on seats, like getting people through the door. As Nimrod said, we're very much interested in just one person saying to us, this was a great show, this meant a lot to me, like this really inspired me, it's part of my research or whatever. So I think it's obviously important to track audience engagement, especially when it's online, but yeah, for us it's not something that we kind of have at the forefront of every show. You know, we're not trying, that's not our main aim.
Okay, thank you for that. We have one more question. We'll take this and then I think we'll take a break. She says, Tasneem Lohani says, it's an interesting problem to have to archive and preserve digital content, and we assume that it stays forever. But of course, with the recent announcement of Yahoo Answers being totally deleted, do you think there's something exciting about this ephemeral reality?
I think it's kind of similar conversation to the right to disappear or to be forgotten online. There's a lot of content online, and not everything needs to be preserved. And I think there's ways that we can think of archiving, and not necessarily within its importance, but within its greater context, maybe. This is something, as Rebecca said, that we've thought about it for a while, but I think being more proactive about this now. Really understanding what is the content and what role do we have as an institution for the years to come, and past and current. And it's not a blanket approach to everything that we do. I personally wouldn't want all my stuff to exist online forever. Not that I have much things online, to be honest. I'm actually trying to erase myself online, or I tried at least. Now I'm not that active. And I think there's something like it's person by person type of approach now. As an institution, it's something that needs to be discussed on a greater level that we're discovering now. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it did answer it. I mean, it's also a question of the relevance, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you can archive things, but the relevance of what you see now, yeah, relevance and the intention of the project. So I guess it's every project.
Well, I don't know if, but you know, like Instagram, 3 years ago, there was this post that showed how many photos are being uploaded to Instagram every day, or how many likes are in Facebook and social media in general. And you think then a lot of other news channels or outlets, and the amount of information there, the overload, it's crazy. It's mad, and it's really unnecessary. So it will be good to have curators involved, but then we start talking about gatekeepers and who's really in charge of this knowledge, and why do we put one person in charge? But then again, we're thinking about Google and how it is a gatekeeper of all of our knowledge, and we trusted it with our eyes closed, unless you're using DuckDuckGo and any other kind of non-censoring, I guess, platform. But all these are some are behind our control, maybe.
So, hello everyone, welcome back. Now we have 2 more guest speakers left. I also just wanted to mention that the guest speakers we've chosen, or we've been trying to get on board, have been working on projects kind of through this last year as well. So I think this is the relevance to every time. So next we have Valentina Tanni and Astrid Lours-Riou from Emotional Interfaces. Hi, Virginie. Can you unmute yourself? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna start sharing my screen.
Yes.
Hopefully it's gonna work.
Start.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay. Oh,
Yes.
good. So hi everyone, really happy to be here. So I'm part of Emotional Interfaces. I'm a designer and artist based in London, and I founded Emotional Interfaces in Paris, actually, which is where I'm from. I founded that with my friend Astrid Lours-Riou. Unfortunately, she can't make it today, so I'll be mainly the sole speaker. Sorry about that. But yes, so we met in Paris, and we founded Emotional Interfaces back in 2 years ago. So what is Emotional Interfaces? It's kind of like not really defined, to be honest. So we currently at the moment, we define that as a curatorial platform. So far, we have been organizing offline exhibition, online exhibition, Instagram residency. So it's very much a mixture, and we kind of like do that on the go. So we're not really quite sure what it's gonna become like. But so far, we quite like being on the floor and just following what we think is the right thing to do at the moment. We started in Paris because at the time, we had an assumption that the media art Paris scene wasn't very prominent. We didn't really see that many exhibitions about media art and digital art, especially like young artists. And for us, the reason why we were really focused on media art was because we believe that it's truly responsible to contemporary issue. So that's why we wanted to be part of the movements. Emotional Interfaces is really centered on one big question. And for us, that is how digital interfaces have been shaping emotional behavior. And for us, the reason why we shoot a team is, even though it's quite specific, it's also a lot of like broad possibility. And also it's very relatable. Everyone, all of you right now have an experience with interfacing on your daily life. You use social media, you navigate, it shapes the way we behave, it shapes the way we communicate, it shapes the way we love even. So we think digital interfaces are really powerful. It definitely shapes the way we feel as well. We started in the One Biennale. So the One Biennale is an art biennale that mainly happened online. So we were part of the One Biennale in 2019, which was pre-COVID. And we started as a pavilion. So basically the One Biennale, they have two systems. They have a system called pavilion. So that will be an online exhibition. And they have what they call embassy, which will be like online, offline exhibition, like natural venue. So we decided to start with an online exhibition. We released an open call to the Biennale, and the team was focused on the timeline I just talked about, like how digital interfaces have been shaping behavior. It was comprised of 16 artists all over the world. What we quite like about the fact that it was online is that we were able to get artists we were never heard of before. So, and you have like artists from different levels of a career. So people were actually studying, people were like quite established already. And we quite like having that all in the same room, or virtual room. So, and it's not something that you see quite often when you do like actual offline show. So we like having that diversity, and for us, being able to be online was kind of like a plus at that moment. When we did that online exhibition, for us, what was really important was to think of scenography. So at the same time as you're shaping an offline exhibition in a natural space, you like think of a light, where the light should be, you think about where that installation should be, right? So the space is very important. And for us, we really thought of the web as a space. So it was very like the opposite of what you think of internet today. So we wanted to be like anti-user friendly, anti-seamless navigation. We're like very much like anti the feed, which is like very much vertical. And for us, we kind of wanted to get back to that web, which is a canvas, the idea of a web as a canvas, as a world where you can get lost. And so in that exhibition, where we wanted to like translate what that idea of wandering around without having any goal. So you don't really go somewhere where you just like getting lost there. You wonder, you can be engaged or disengaged, and it's fine. It's a choice. And we like having that choice there for the audience to be able to choose whether they want to, like engage with the exhibition. What is funny, when we actually look at a few analytics on the website to see if people were actually engaged or not. And it's really funny because you see people and being, like they go on the website, they stay for 3 seconds and then they just go off because they're just like, oh, what is that? And then just like, yeah, disconnect. And then you have like another part of like Virgin who like actually stay for 5 long minutes, just kind of like exploring all the different possibilities of the website, which I think is very much like what we wanted to do in terms of choice, letting people be able to like wander and get lost or not even. It's set up in a 3D grid environment. So we use like things like hyperlink, embed video to showcase the artist's work. I'm just gonna pop up on the website quickly to show you what it looks like. So basically, can everyone see the website? Yeah, okay, all good.
Yes.
So here's the main page of the website. And as I'm scrolling, I actually added like a scroll that is just like basically is horizontal. The reason behind that is because it was just the opposite of what is a vertical scroll today. You just like scrolling to an Instagram feed and it's just infinite. And here just scrolling into another type of world, which doesn't look anything like Instagram. And we're quite having that idea of, even in terms of aesthetic, is a reminiscent of like the web in the early 2000s. And we kind of having, we kind of have like a very nostalgic thing when we thought of the aesthetic of the website as well. And so when you scroll, you can see the different things happening. You have like the name, you have a description of the project. When you scroll by, you see different name, and there will be the lineup. So that is basically the name of the artist. Let's say you want to click on like one of the artists here. So I actually already click because it's a bit slow. So I'm kind of cheating, and I'm going to go to another tab to showcase that other room. So basically, when you click, you arrive in a sort of room. So it's a 2D room. You will see the name of the artist. You see a description of the artist, as biography, a video, which is basically the work of the artist. Then you see a description of the project. When you go back here, you can actually go back to the main room. You see here that another artist being showcased. So it's basically like 2 artists per room. So one work I want to present here, and I think that's a quite funny work. It's a work by Felipe Villas-Boas. So Philippe Villard-Boas is an artist based in Paris, and is very much work at the intersection of like technology and its social, political, and cultural implication. Here for us, he made a work named Skeleton. I'm not sure it's gonna work actually because it's very, very slow. My Wi-Fi is a bit glitchy, but basically you can see, oh, well, it's working. Like, you can see it's basically running to an Instagram feed. And just like that for the entire rest of the videos. And I think it's a very humorous take. It's not even trying to hijack or make something else of interface, but just like a very whimsical and humorous take on what the feed is. And it's a long marathon while you're just running around, there's no end to it. And showcasing that work, especially in an environment which is the complete opposite of what Facebook or Instagram look like. I think it's a very strong contrast in terms of aesthetic and in terms of the layout of the interfacing. They're like two completely different worlds. And we quite like having that type of work with us here because I think that's like, it's almost like it's a different time. Like they're not made in different, in the same year, although they're actually up from the same decade. I'm just gonna go back to the presentation. So that's basically it for like, yeah, the online exhibition we have done. And then we kind of shifted when COVID happened. So that was last year. And when COVID hit, all the venue closed, and obviously a lot of like institutions moved online. And the only thing we were sure of at that moment, even though we started online, was that we did not want to be online anymore. And the reason was that because there was just so much noise, so many exhibitions happening all over the world. And although some of them are very interesting, for us, we kind of just wanted to take it slow because for us, being online wasn't a default choice. It was a choice from the get-go. It was a curatorial choice for us. And we did that not because we couldn't do an offline exhibition, but because we wanted to be online. So when COVID happened, we were like, okay, well, we can't be offline. But that doesn't mean that we actually want to do an online exhibition again, because we didn't really have much idea, to be honest. Like, it kind of was like a weird burnout. So what we did, we kind of just took time there, and then we got in contact with a venue called EP7 that is based in Paris. So that's the picture you see right here. So it's a venue in the south of Paris, and that venue is quite amazing by the facility they have, because basically the facade is full of screens. So they have 12 screens. And with them, we were able to organize an exhibition, keeping in mind like social distancing and sanitary guidelines, because people did not have to enter a venue. They were simply able to view the exhibition from outside in the public space, which I think was very handy for us, because we're like, oh yeah, we don't need to think about the test and trace. We don't need to think about like, you know, having gel at the audience disposition or making sure people distant. So it was quite a big relief actually in terms of organization, because the logistics were like much more easier. So when we had that venue, we launched, it wasn't an open call, but we kind of get in touch with the artists ourselves. So a few artists that were part of the one Biennale exhibition with us. And we reached out to them with one big team, which was the team of uncertainty. Because obviously last year, especially for artists, it was a very, I mean, even now, like it's still going on and the venue are closed, obviously a lot of things get cancelled. It's a very tough year for everyone and even at the moment. But I think the role of interfaces that have been like very prominent. So when the world basically get into the lockdown, we all move online, right? And we all move into the interfacing. October can be, you know, a source of stress and more because you are always online, you're working remotely. At the same time, it's kind of like saving us. It can kind of keeping us connected to the world. Even at the moment, like being able to do a webinar with people like from all over the world, based in India, is like a proof that the interfaces are working somewhere, right? And we think that contrast was quite interesting for us. So we kind of wanted to play in that double shift of what the interface is. Is it something that is uncertain, or is it something that is actually stable? The lineup was comprised of 8 artists. So it was very much a collaborative process with the artists. So they were all at different stages of their project. Some of them were very work in progress. Some of them were already finished. So we kind of like kept talking to them non-stop to make sure that we're making something that suits them. in terms of like why we did that outside as well, like we did not really realize when we started to collaborate with that venue EP7, because the screen was outside for us, was something that we knew about. But when we actually started to stream the content on the screen, we realized that actually it's kind of like trigger a new question on what is media art, on like what the channel, on what the format for media art can be. Because it was basically outside like street art can be, like people, you know, like they look at mural of street art while they're just walking by, and it was the same for that. Especially because media art is usually like online or projected, and they will be like in a very dark room or something like that. But here it was completely the opposite. It was just like on a street with like a lot of bystander, a lot of car. And we think that a new paradigm was quite interesting to witness, because it kind of like posed new question on what we can do to push the format of media art even further. There's a few artists I want to talk about, because I think they're like very much representative of what I meant by like pushing the media, pushing the format and the layout. So I'm gonna start with Queen Scargé. So Queen Scargé is an artist based in Morocco, and she did a work named Bedroom Tour. And her work is basically, I mean, as you can see, it's very much skillful. She's in a bedroom, it's a representation of herself. And I think like having that representation, that visual representation of like her being safe in her bedroom, so it's something quite intimate. And she's there like longing around, just chilling, doing different activity like playing video game. And that being displayed on the street, I think is a very interesting construct, because you basically opposing what is public and what is intimate. And here, basically, it's kind of like we're peeping, you know, intimacy in a world, and having that on a really big screen for us was very, very interesting to witness. And I think she really did well in like how she appropriated the screen for herself, because it wasn't just one video cut in small part. It was basically her bedroom, like all the screen represent a part of the room, a part of her hobby, a part of her life. And they all work together, they can't be divided, or they're not just like 12 videos all separated. They actually really work well for that format and for that role. So basically that work, it would be really hard to actually screen that somewhere else, because she actually really made it for the venue. She really thought of the venue as a space to habitate, not only like a screen which she need to send a video on. So it's a very good one in terms of like appropriating the space in different ways. The second work I want to present is Adrien Joux. So Adrien Joux is an artist based in Paris, and for that work, he collaborated with a designer named Elie Mignon. So their work, his name is Less Than Nothing, and Less Than Nothing, it basically, it looks like an advert when you look at it like that, right? It looks like an advert, or it looks like newspaper. You only think, oh yeah, it might be, I don't know, maybe some sort of news channel streaming on this the facade. So you don't really think so much about it, but it's actually like a deceit, because actually when you look closer, you actually will be able to read a poem that Adrien wrote. And that poem is actually a very intimate poem. It's a poem about his life, his friendship with his parents, his family, his friend and lover. So when you read about it, you actually, you know, you can discover more about him as a person. But it's something that you wouldn't be able to do. So you just like pass by and don't stop, because then you should be deceived and you would think it's like a normal, you know, like, yeah, maybe some news channel streaming the latest news from the world. So you actually need to like think twice and to stop by. And I think that moment of interaction where you decide to make that choice, it's a bit like the online exhibition I've been talking about. Like it's the audience making the choice to engage. And when they engage, they actually discover that it's a piece of art and it's not just like advertisement, right? So we like that contrast as well, and we think it was a very interesting take on what the screen mean, because then here, Adrien really made use of the screen on, he also used the think of a screen outside. We think it will be, you know, like a giant panel of information, a giant panel of news or advertisement. So whenever we see the screen outside, at least, as a carrier of art. So I think it was a very good way to use the bias we already have when we're on the street and we're just like casually looking around. So it was basically a virtual work that are quite representative of what we did at EP7, basically taking media art outside. What we also did, we provided a documentation of exhibition as a complement. So basically, it's a website you can just access. It's emotionalinterfaces.com U19. And it was basically to mitigate the fact that a lot of people might not access the exhibition because it was between two lockdowns. It was only 2 weeks, and it was in Paris. And at the time, not many people were able to travel. And it was also to mitigate the fact that there was a lack of mediation in the venue because obviously the staff is social distancing. They can't be really too close to people. They're not reaching out, and no one really want to talk to anyone today. So if people, like the audience wanted to know more about the exhibition, they could actually scan the QR code and discover more about the artist. So they were able to read more about like what type of work they're doing. When you look at the interface here, you can obviously see it look like a messenger app, because basically what we wanted to do was to create something quite engaging and kind of like to trick people into reading. So the reason why we use Bubble is that we're so used to read information through Bubble, through messaging, that we thought, for the documentation, it would be quite great instead of like trying to make people read a long PDF. We can use that kind of interface, and it's very reminiscent, because it's very familiar. People like to read message, and it's very engaging in a way. We frame the question to be very open-minded here. So basically what you see here is like interview with the artist. And the set of questions were more like about like, oh, how are you? How do you feel? How was the year for you? And it wasn't really a typical type of description about their work, but more about them expressing what they felt like. We think that emotional side aspect of the work was very important, especially considering the tough time we're going through. And it's, especially in the creative sector, it's very tough because of the lack of, like financial support, the lack of exhibition happening. So us being able to talk to the artists on a more personal level, on intimate level, was quite important because we wanted to provide that support as well, on a platform for them to be able to express themselves on their feeling. So yeah, that's basically what we did as a package for EP7, whether it was the screen, exhibition, or the documentation. So no, I mean, we don't really know what's gonna be next for us because we try online exhibition, we try a bit of offline. And obviously right now, like, we're kind of taking our time as well, everything is kind of stuck. We kind of, I think what we want to do is a mixture of both. We will believe that whether you go online, you need to be a choice, you need to be, perfectly curating, you need to be a scenography, and whether you go offline as well, right? So we're very excited about like the future of what we can do, but yeah. Thanks for listening to us. Any question? Oh, I think Astrid is here.
Yeah, thank you, Virginie. Yeah, Astrid's also here. If anyone has any questions.
I mean, I was quite interested, maybe knowing, since you're interested in interfaces and the way interfaces create behavior. Well, first of all, I found it quite interesting that when you're working online, you try to break the idea of the linearity of the interfaces that we usually deal with communicating. So you did like something which is quite opposite. So like the space that you kind of navigate. On the other side, when you went outside during the lockdown, then you decided to like that, like the online part, that is the communication, the chatbot, that was actually helping people by using a format that we are normally kind of like used to. I just wanted to know if you have some insights about these different ways of working, that these different approaches that you had to deal with the interface in the past 2 years that you have been working, especially across this parallel of being online and working on the walls of a building.
Yeah, I think for us, we're pretty much discovering as we go, but maybe as a bit of insight, I actually work as a designer, as an experience designer. So my job is literally to create interfaces. to create like seamless navigation, to create like really good user flow. So I kind of use that as my insight to basically full on my artistic idea. So whatever I do in my job, I'm like, oh yeah, we should do the complete opposite, because I don't need to do anything that need to be profitable there. For the chatbot idea, why I made it engaging, because I knew how it could be engaging, right? So I kind of use like what I know as a designer to be able to design an interface that I thought like the user would actually like. And even the way I say user now is like basically shifting my mindset of, okay, yeah, I know how to catch the intention of people. And if you think of like the audience as an user, you can, apply one trick to make them engage. But I don't think it's necessarily true for all the format we have been doing. But usually like some insight I'm using as a practitioner that is between art and design.
Thank you.
We have two more questions from the audience. There's one from Tasneem Lohani. I love your exhibition on the screens on the facade of a building. Do you think museums will adapt to this way of showing and growing pool of digital art being made today?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I don't think anyone will predict that we won't be able to do exhibition inside for a minute. So I'm not sure whether like museum will be able to adapt so quickly, but I'm sure that is something we need to think about at least, because if we're wanting, it's maybe only my opinion, but if one thing we've seen from the last year, where every museum have been trying to be online to some extent of success. I think there's some learning to be done there, like what is success in that case? And are people being really engaged, or people really want to go on an exhibition? Maybe not. And then if we have to be outside, like it was the case in EP7, how do we do so? I think that's new format. It doesn't need to be, like basically the EP7, we have a fantastic architecture that allow that dispositive. It's not the case for every museum, but I think there's definitely some insight to be learned here, because maybe it's something really different. Maybe it's just like, I don't know, we can think of like open exhibition, especially in terms of like when you look at sculpture, for example. I mean, it's quite different from media art, right? But like when you look at contemporary art sculpture, a lot of them can be, displayed in garden, they can display, outside on the street. It's perfectly fine. And I think maybe we need to be inspired by those kind of different practice, trying to, share the channel of which we're trying to communicate. So we need to be, for me at least, the way I say, I think it need to be a discussion between the artist and the medium.
Thank you. I think like museums have this kind of infrastructure they have built on, and they're still trying to use it. Just create viewing rooms within their given infrastructure. But I think they're more independent people who are trying to experiment more with these kind of public spaces and things. So we have one more question from Rachel Falconer. Do you feel there is a clear distinction between the online and IRL in our contemporary context? In UX behavior terms, are we already in a hybrid state?
Like a clear distance in terms of like exhibition format or interaction?
I'm not sure.
Maybe both. Maybe it's both actually, because that's what I thought so. Yes, well, definitely. Honestly, for me, in terms of format, and that, I think maybe the main issue I see with online exhibition is that they're trying to replicate reality. We're basically trying to recreate home, like a viewing home. So we're trying to recreate walls, a white space, and then we should hang on like a painting, right? But I think the distinction needs to be exactly clear. Like it's not the same space. We're not trying to replicate the real world, because it doesn't work. We don't have the same interaction when we interact with an online piece of work, right? So I think we maybe not quite there, but I definitely think the answer is yes, it needs to be distinct. But the only way I think we can like, actually craft meaningful format on both sides, whether it's like online or offline, because they're actually two different world, and they actually offer different type of interaction. You don't behave the same way offline or online, right? Even though like the way we interact, like I mean, even just like speaking remotely, you don't have a visual cue, you don't really have like the gesture and everything. So it definitely need to be quite different. And hopefully I think it will like come up more and more when we do like more and more online exhibition, like that insight need to be there.
Right. Okay, thank you, Virginia and Virginie and Astrid. We're running a little bit late, so we'll move on to the next guest speaker. Yeah, thank you so much for presenting and being here,
Thank you,
taking
everyone.
your time. Thank you. So next we have Guildor. He's actually an artist who's worked as part of Art 19 virus virtual reality games. He's from Italy, and he's here.
Yes, I am. Hello. Let me put my earphones. Hello. Yes.
Hi, Guildor. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So as Vivek was saying, yeah, I feel like sort of an imposter. I'm amongst so many curators and great ones. So
we might not be here without you. So.
Okay, so for this reason, let me share my screen. So as I was saying, I thought it might have been interesting to give you a feedback on how it is to be curated on the web. So like taking it from the other side. As you mentioned, I'm an artist and I am based in Italy, and my work deals with language and technology and how they shape cultural experiences. So today I would like to talk with you about an online exhibitions that I was invited to join last November, so at the end of 2020. And so as you all know well, the art system in these last years had to take into considerations like alternative ways to access art, and that's what you have been talking about even like till now. And while like many institutions clumsily populated the internet space with content that wasn't specifically thought or even ready to be shown online, I think that this period was great for smaller, more agile realities that had been experimenting already for a while in this realm, and so they had the chance to stand out somehow. Fusolab is a cultural center. It's not strictly, it doesn't strictly deal with art. It's like a cultural center that is involved with technology and is based in Rome and in the periphery of Rome, actually. And they work to bring the people of this area closer to technology. They do courses, they host hackathons, and they also they wanted to also enrich this world with like starting to host digital art. So they involved Valentina Tanni, who I'm trying to replace today. And so they asked Valentina Tanni, who was an art historian, a critic, and also a well-respected curator for digital art. They asked her to curate a number of performances that had to take place in an online exhibition. These performances were available during live screening on Facebook, but also, and more importantly, on these big screens, in a virtual, on big screens in a virtual representation of that recreated the architecture of Centocelle, which is the area of Rome where Fusolab operates. And first of all, like even the participants, the audience itself, was introduced to these works through a narrative, a gaming narrative, in which they needed to free the artists and their work that were secluded in this digital realm. So when Valentina asked me to participate, I decided that I wanted to develop a work that dealt with one thing that is really important to me, that is like this sort of happiness imperative that we are constantly subjected to, and that even last year and this year, through these unfortunate times and really proving times, that didn't rest its claws and was still like, I always feel this this imperative to be happy at all times, to be almost suffocating. And also another theme that I wanted to investigate was the one that we had that we came across many times, that is the presence from afar. So if on one end we relied on technology, and technology proved to be fundamental in order to remain in contact and to kind of keep alive that human contact that we so desperately need. On the other, we also, for the first time, I believe, we realized that technology has limits in this sense, and we will never replace that. So it was a strange position to find ourselves in. And as I said during the performance, while technology was proving its merits, we came to touch its limits. So reflecting on these themes, I created Immaginami felice se devi, Imagine Me Happy If You Must. And that is a performance that I realized in two different versions. The first one was in front of the camera, as if it was a Zoom call that was streamed. So I was speaking like I'm doing now to you. And another one, the other one that I realized, was directly into the virtual room that I showed you before. But before telling you more about the performance itself, I would like you to bring you there, to take you for a ride in this virtual road that I asked to be open for you today. No, actually, it's always open if you know how to get there. So I will share the link in the chat so that you can come and visit. So let me just retrieve the Zoom chat interface. Here we go. So if you click on that link, you will be brought to the virtual room where I hosted, and all the performances were actually hosted. And I need to say that it's quite intensive for the computer. So if you're having any trouble in connecting there and staying there, or you see that your computer doesn't want to make the effort, then Vivek will also share it on Zoom, so you can remain on Zoom if you want. So the plan is to go there, go around for 5 minutes. I will walk you around, and then maybe we meet at the big pair of stairs down there, and then after 5 minutes we come back to Zoom. Yes, as Vivek suggests, you can move with the keyboard, with the keys WASD, or with the arrows on your keyboard. All right, so I see some of you are already here. So this, as I was saying, is a representation of the architecture taken from Google. Wait, I'm having a sort of echo. So taken from Google Maps. and very created the area where Fusolab is created. So as you've seen, we all appeared on this central square. So this way of enjoying digital art, but starting even if through avatars, but all in the same place, was a way to still keep alive this sense of community and going somewhere together and discuss about what you have seen. So yeah, as you can see, you can move around, and there is even the subway station called Mirti, and then you see these big screens where like the works of art, where the performances were shown. Even the performances had like different characteristics. There were some were theater, and some were video streaming and like playing with the camera or filters. And then I tried to do a sort of a performance in myself, like, and I asked to create this big set of stairs. So if you can join me here. So let's say that this was the area where I spent the square where, sorry, the corner where I spent all my performance time. Oh. Okay, yeah. And you can see all the audio also from the other works. So what I was doing, and then I will show you more with the documentation, I was simply going up and down these stairs, right? And I was interpreting this text that I created for the performance. So I had this digital version of the Sisyphus going up and down with no apparent meaning or direct task. I was just going up and down and repeating this text. And it was very nice, because also people started to move up and down with me. And then of course you can see like my avatar that is even as the same shirt as I was wearing. So we had this double dimension for the performance to happen in. So if you think, look, let's do this. Let's try and do this. Do you want to come up here with me for a second? Who is in the virtual game? Let's say.
On the stairs, you mean?
Yeah, I was just trying to find the. No. Sorry. I think it's not possible anymore. I will show you one thing. Okay. Yes. So let me. No. But yeah. Anyway, it's possible to create objects and to. And you see now I'm sharing my my webcam as well in this virtual world. I wanted to take a photo of you, but it seems it's not possible at this moment. But I will show you later then. Okay, I think we can go back to. Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
We can go back to Zoom. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay.
Here we are. So I will tell you a bit more of the performance after you kind of got a hint of how it was, how messy but at the same time funny was the virtual environment, the Mozilla Labs that they created specifically for this show. So my performance lasted 30 minutes. My performances lasted 30 minutes. And I was, as I was mentioning, I was walking up and down the stairs, and it was either physically or digitally. And I was interpreting this text while I was doing so. So one day I would take my laptop on my arms, and I would walk up and down the stairs of my flat. And then the following day, I would do the same, but in the digital world with my avatar. The text that I was interpreting was around 3 minutes long. And I was repeating it in loop for the whole duration of the performance. On one hand, I was interested in the effect of repetition and, you know, the micro variations. But on the other, I was thinking in terms of the medium I was working in. So I thought that I came up with this structure because I was taking into account how people experience content online. Attention span is usually short, as we know, and time runs faster. So even a 3-minute commitment is already a big ask. So in this way, I wanted to leave freedom to the user to delve into the performance and for how much they wanted, and also feel as free to leave it when they want it, but still having grasped enough to keep in motion a series of thoughts and questions. So I would go on for 30 minutes, but after 3 minutes, you have a grasp of the performance. So in the last year, I have been thinking about the denomination of an event that is defined as live. So it stands both for an event that is accessed in presence, but it is also used for an event that happens from afar, but in real time. And I believe that is exactly in these elements of time and reality that these two different types of live event find their common ground. So we can say that they both happen at the same time as they are received from the spectator, and they happen for real. So a live performance online, in order to be a live performance, to me, will be developed in front of its receivers, and most importantly, it needs to happen on the chosen platform for real. But what do I mean with this for real? So in the case of this performance and the theme I wanted to work on, as I was telling you, this presence from afar, this overload from communication, the fact that we are all telling this narrative of being, and we need to tell this narrative of being the happiest and the most successful in order to fit in the standards that we are imposed onto, that are imposed onto us. So in order to speak about these themes, I think that it was perfect to do so as if I was having a Zoom talk. So, and also if you want to see from the other perspective, if I need to create a performance that has to be streamed online, it makes sense to me to take its medium in account and speak about themes that are related to that. So evoking all the hours that we spent in front of that very same screen between calls, meeting, talks, and webinar like this. But at the same way, I felt at the same time, I felt that the virtual room could be used for much more than just watching stream content, like on those screens and totems that you saw and that you can see also in this picture. I thought that the performance could actually happen in that virtual world. And so I brought my avatar in there. And as I was mentioning to you, I did the same action. I was walking up and down the stairs, this set of stairs that I asked to be created in this virtual world. And I was reading the same time. I was reading my text. I was interpreting my text while I was doing this task of going up and down. So it was happening in real time, right? And the users were there. And this created a sort of connection with the user that actually I didn't experience from performing in front of my camera and going up and down the physical stairs of my apartment. So in some way, it was like it was a very rich experience, enriching experience even for myself, because I could experience like kind of I could stretch to it to the most the possibility of internet of being like a place for community and to interact and feel the presence from afar. Sorry, I want to change. Okay. And then another very interesting aspect of this experience was that I asked another artist to make the documentation of the performance, and I asked well, he's another artist that was involved with the project, and it's called Luca Miranda, and he works with Machinima. Machinima, as some of you might know, is a form of experimental cinema in which video clips are filmed in real time inside virtual environments, and then they are edited into longer video work. However, usually people record these clips by recording the screens, so with screen capture. But in this case, I asked Luca to try and use the camera that was available in the virtual room itself in Mozilla Hubs. So it was a sort of meta photo camera. And I asked him to just take documentation with the use of this. And usually in the virtual room, it functions as like for selfies. So when you take off like take out the camera, when you select the camera to take a photo, it's like facing you and it's good to take selfies. But Luca was going around the camera and was positioning it so in a way to create the documentation for the performance. So in this way, even the performance itself, the documentation itself was in communication, was in relation to the environment it was took in, if it makes sense. And finally, I would like to share with you a brief extract of my work. It's, as I said, 3 minutes long, more or less. However, there's just one more thing to be said about it. And it is that in the last few years, especially since when I moved back to Italy from London in 2019, I started to question the idea of English as international language. I mean, of course, we can use it as such, and it has the power to bridge people from different cultures and let them communicate. But this didn't happen just because English is easy to learn and to speak. But, and you all know it well, it also happened for the political history of England. So I don't want to take English as for granted. I mean, I don't want to rely only on English to communicate my art. Sometimes I do it, but I also wanted to explore and embrace my own language, which is of course Italian. And this work was one of these. So it will be in Italian. Hopefully, I walked you through the performance enough that you can have a sense of the environment, the way that it was happening. And I'm sorry that you won't be able to fully grasp the meaning of the poetic text that I've written, but sometimes it's also nice like that. It's a bit like, as we were saying before, that there's like this potential, like in the digital realm, to do things, and we can even, I think that we can even bring live performances online, but we will always have to remember that we are we need to translate technology, and also, you know, the thing of the presence from afar. It's a great thing, but it's not the same thing. So we need to translate from one language to another one, a different one, that carries with it like changes and something that something will mutate and evolve into a new thing. So I will shut myself now and let my other self speak.
Da quando ho imparato a sorridere in foto sono molto più contento. Dall'alto gli occhi erano grandi e le bocche si notavano appena, poi sono cambiate le prospettive. Ci rappresentiamo con obiettivi che fanno di ogni viso una resting bitch face e ne calibriamo l'espressione come faretti sul set, luce che diventa vera solo attraverso uno schermo. Siamo cresciuti, ma il mondo è diventato più grande di noi e abbiamo ereditato ottimismo senza poterne fare inventario. Tra le cose che non ci possiamo permettere da adulti c'è mostrarsi infelici. Siamo stock images diventate meme che nascondono la sofferenza guardando distratti al passato. Sono stato nostalgico, ma non mi mancano quei giorni. Credo di aver esagerato con la felicità, perché adesso i recettori evitano la serotonina come io la tequila. Con questo mal di testa l'occhio non basta, costretti ad ascoltare musica allegra anche quando siamo tristi. A essere ambidestro mi sveglierei sempre col piede giusto. Metto like, lo tolgo, metto e lo tolgo, poi lo metto ancora e questo va bene. Non so mai cosa mi piace davvero. Disturbo ossessivo compulsivo, baluardo della resistenza algoritmica. Cuore, set, react, hug, non commento. Si può essere tristi solo con una storia da raccontare. Siamo male assieme e non ce lo vogliamo dire. Non sento i sapori, non sento gli odori, non sento più nulla. Senza passione il nichilismo borghese risorge. Infelicità è politica e la colpa è cattolica. Abbiamo messo il fallimento su un piedistallo e lo contempliamo solo se capovolto. Il vero fallimento è non fallire abbastanza, non fallire meglio. Se non l'hai cercato non fa il giro, se non è epico fa male davvero. Il fallimento è un'opportunità e noi siamo nell'opportunità fino al collo. Non dire di no. Yes and si può ricevere un richiamo formale per essere stati troppo negativi. Il nostro lavoro si svolge su un palco di improvvisazione teatrale. Non sbagli mai se non sai quello che fai. La meritocrazia non premia il merito, punisce chi non se lo prende. Vivi nel momento, la meditazione occidentale, il culturismo degli anni '80, life-work balance. Mi tengo in forma e pratico yoga. La pandemia ci ha cambiato a parole, eravamo positivi, ci ritroviamo resilienti, presenti, a distanza. Non ho mai ospitato così tanti estranei come in questi mesi. Mi sentite? Scusate per lo sfondo in subbuglio. Da quando la tecnologia ha mostrato i suoi meriti, ne abbiamo toccato i limiti. Vorrei che la scienza mi dicesse se la boccetta del disinfettante è pulitissima o sporchissima e che la filosofia contemporanea si occupasse della domanda più grande di tutte. Come stai? Immaginami felice se devi, ma non obbligarmi a mentire. Una volta rispondevo abbastanza. Ora faccio un confronto degli ultimi 3 giorni per non sentire il peso dell'assoluto e capita anche a me di essere felice. L'altro ieri al supermercato ho preso i fichi d'India sfusi con i guantini plastichini dove scivola tutto e non mi ci sono punto. Sono contento di esserci riuscito. I fichi d'India sono la frutta con più differenze di prezzo tra confezionati e sfusi. Che merda il capitalismo. Rispondere davvero a come stai è rivoluzionario.
Guido?
Yes?
I don't think we were seeing...
Quando ho imparato a sorridere in foto...
Sorry?
We're just listening to the audio.
Oh,
so,
it wasn't...
so maybe you can place the link
yes,
in the chat so people can
so you were just watching my
yes,
me.
so we weren't sure. I tried to to text you, but I think it's a beautiful sort of interjection of the technology not working or kind of coming in between us, not exactly doing what is expected to do. But perhaps you can put
because I wasn't sharing the screen anymore. No, I was.
No, we actually could only see your... Yeah, exactly.
But I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry. I think we waited a little bit to see what was happening, but it became clear that it was just the audio. But why don't you put the link to the work in the chat so people maybe can take a look later?
I will indeed.
Or anyway, we can provide it together with the recording of the event.
Let's see.
And definitely, it's a good place to, to start to wrap up this first day in terms of, many questions have been raised, and this question of translation and between different realms. And also glitches and things that don't actually always go according to plan. It's a very interesting one. And, this idea of language on the one hand, like, English being, sort of dominant language, which was also raised before by another question, but also the language of code vis-a-vis like, sort of human language, and where the interface plays as well, at the boundaries in between these two codes and languages. So I'm wondering if there are any questions from the audience or any reflections and final comments also by other panelists to kind of come to a close for today.
I mean, somebody had brought this up before, the questions of using vernacular language or any other language, I guess, suppose, other than English. But it is also, language is one thing, I feel, but it is also about the interface. So it's also the cultural differences, right? Like of what symbols mean. It could mean different for different places. Of what gestures mean, like so it goes a little beyond the language also. I mean, I think Padmini is also quite fluent with the design aspect of it. So maybe there could be some reflections on this.
I think so. I guess well, it's not easy to explain, but so I've been always working with written language. I write also in technology, as somebody was, I do UX writing, or so when I started, and back then when I started making art, I was trying to move away from written language and its structure and its the hierarchy between words and grammar. So I was that's why I entered, let's say, visual arts. Then but then became quite soon clear to me that I couldn't go too far from language itself. So it was always speaking about non-verbal language, like body, proxemic, how you introduce yourself, or the semiotics of the spaces you are inhabiting, all of that. So I think that in this tension, and it's just a few years ago that I reclaimed written language first and then Italian as well. So I think there's always this tension of trying to break language and to make it poetic somehow, but also to keep it accessible and to use also the surrounding. I think this one was very much text-based anyhow. But usually, but even in this, and usually also in others, I try to create this tension of okay, this is where text can go from here, but then there is the image, but then I don't trust the image, and then you go back to the text in another layer, that is the poetic layer. So you leave the literal aspect of it. So I think there's always this tension. I don't know if it's clumsily answering to your question, but I feel there's always this question which push out of language and then back in.
I was interested in something that you said, and maybe the audience wants also to ask a question, just bringing it back about curating. You said that you very often encounter like content that actually wasn't ready to be displayed online. And I mean, this is also for our panelists who are still here. When is content ready to be online? How do we even discuss it? I mean, where is the remark coming from?
If I can disambiguate, it's like it's more than ready. It's like thought to be. I mean, it's. I don't want to go as far as the context specific, but we can. It's even the fruition of content is different, and we know this very well. So, kind of just copying and pasting, it makes it worse and less accessible somehow. But I leave the word to other panelists maybe.
Rebecca, maybe do you want to add something to this?
I guess it's something that relates to the artist. That relates to the artist and the work that they create, and how do we fit that within the context. And what I think what we do with the online platforms is to try to create the context around that. And I think this is what we've done with the real-time constraints, is to allow this conversation to continue and go between the different platforms and the different ways of exhibiting the works. We worked a lot with artists that are kind of born digital, and that transformation to online sometimes is a bit, transformation to on-site might be a bit kind of scary. So I think that sometimes the natural habitat of online is easier to cope with people that are naturally working online. But I like this tension between the two spaces. So from our point of view, it's always to really try and push these boundaries of exhibition and exhibiting works.
And I think it's also important to mention that not all works are sort of will ever be ready for online, because it's not easy to translate sometimes. And I think that's been a big issue for us during the pandemic, is watching all of these spaces try to quickly turn around shows that were never supposed to be online, and that's not do them maybe to the justice of the artwork. As curators, we have a responsibility towards the artists, but also towards the artworks. And I think it's okay to say this shouldn't be online. This is not the realm for that work to exist, because when works are online, it's a performance of objecthood. It's a performance of code. It's a performance of networks and signals. It's not a tangible thing, and I think just some works are not supposed to be seen in an online space, and I think that's okay.
Thank you. And I just have a comment which somehow brings together some of the presentation from our guests this afternoon, which is really the kind of environment of the web, in a sense of, I was, pretty interested, Rebecca, in what you said, as, the presence, this kind of rabbit hole where you can still get lost because of the presence of these communities at the periphery. And on the other end, like Virginie, like staging as a kind of online interface where you deliberately can get lost, as opposed to, a kind of more control environment, such as a platform. And then finally, we even are translated into the VR game, where there is a kind of public space being staged. So I'm just trying to connect the dots here, but I think there is an interesting tension, which is telling about also what the role is curating on the web is in between, like kind of orchestrating some dynamics, so in a way imposing a certain degree instruction around a particular environment, but also kind of letting go, like kind of embracing the wilderness of the web in terms of a place where you can encounter and stumble upon, you know, things. So I don't know if any of the panelists want to respond to that somehow.
I think it's also a good point, since, I mean, if no one wants to reply, I think it's also a good point or a good, to kind of like wrap up what we've seen today. I mean, we are actually close, we're towards, we've passed the time of the end of the webinar. So, I mean, unless someone wants to add or the audience wants to address questions for us, I think it's an interesting like change in approaches that we can take with us.
One
for today.
Response to that just made me think of my early days online and how exciting it was to be discovered to this world of, then it was BBS. It was like, I've been telling Rebecca about that recently. It was really early days, and it was like a whole new world. And I think what we do is just allowing people to discover what this thing holds for us. And it holds everything. And as we saw, it can hold like social interactions, it can hold artworks, it's financial system, it's everything. And I think that's what's really exciting about what we do and what other curators and artists that work online do, is the sense of exploration, the sense of showing what's out there. And for me, that's what kind of connects to how it all started.
And I'd like to, well, rather than add, to reiterate something that Rebecca had said before, and I really believe that, and about translation. So it's not just about the work that can be translated for a different realm, but also like we need to be able to translate the experiences we're having in order to understand them and to deal the different environments with in the best way, and to kind of use it to inhabit them at the best of their possibilities. I think so. Translation, I think, is really great term. And
yeah, I do have one last comment. It's just one thought I had, and maybe it's more like an open question for everyone here to think about. Like, the way I've done my work, like the first online exhibition was really like about shaping the web of the canvas. So very mean sort of like early 2000. And I was thinking, how can we shape the web by coexisting with actual interfaces rather than being opposite to them? Because we're always in a position while like, we're trying to oppose the feed, we're trying to oppose the algorithm. So how can we think of like curatorial practice that actually work with interfaces? What the corporations are trying to do and trying to hijack that in some way. I actually have an example in mind because last year I attended a concert online, and it was on Fortnite. It was a concert of Travis Scott. And it was really smart in the way they actually use the contextual views, the context they had at their disposition, and the concert was attended by millions of people. And it was something that wasn't quite seen before, and it was quite powerful because they used an environment that was already there. Users were already there, the environments were already there, so they were not trying to do something new, they were just using something they had. And I think maybe something we can think of, like how can we try to cross path with the universe we already have in more like the interfaces, in the virtual environment. So yeah, I don't know the answer, to be honest. So just like an open question I had in my mind when I was listening to you all.
Yeah, thank you, Virginie. So I think we wrap up for today. We've exceeded the time a little bit. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Guildor. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Virginie. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, I suppose, and continue some conversations. And tomorrow we'll look a little bit into, I think, a little more into the context of India. And of course, there's going to be other things, but we start in the context of India a little bit. So yeah, hope everyone enjoyed the session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. See you. Bye. Have a good day. See you.
Thank you to everyone for participating.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for your time and sharing your project and the conversation. And thank you to everyone that was here for being with us all the way through parts of the session. We'll see you tomorrow.
Ciao.
Ciao,
See
ciao.
you.